I'm Debbie Godfrey. Welcome to the Positive Parenting PEP Talks podcast.
Today's pep talk is about creating more teamwork in our families. I like to talk about this on Fridays, and I think just different aspects of how to bond together as a family. And this week I want to talk about an evening ritual for family bonding, because I had a lot of really neat experiences with my kids at bedtime of having different ways at different times in their lives where we connected together at bedtime. So one of the first things that we did early on was this ritual of asking 3 questions and having everybody go around and answer each of the questions. And here's what the questions were. What was the best thing that happened to you today? And each of the kids would go around and answer, and I would answer what was the best thing that happened to me today. What was the worst thing that happened to you today? And we would each go around and answer the answer to what was the worst thing that happened to each of us that day, and what was the silliest thing that happened to each of us that day. So it was the best thing, what was the worst thing, and what was the silliest thing. And it's really amazing because most of the time the kids would come up with stories. They would think about it and they would come up with stories. And what this does is it really helps us get information into our children's world. Many times our kids come home from school and we say, "How was school today?" And they say, "Fine." And we don't get any specific answers. But when you ask these questions, what was the best thing that happened to you today? What was the worst thing that happened to you today? And what was the silliest thing that happened to you today? You actually get detailed answers and you find out more about what's happening in your children's lives. Another thing that we did at a point in time was the kids would love to hear stories about me when I was a kid. So at bedtime, they would pick an age and they'd say, "Okay, tell us about when you were 8." And I would think of a story when I was 8 years old and I would tell it to them. And they would just laugh, and they loved to hear stories about when I was different ages in my life. So in a sense, to me, this is a way of creating empathy. Many children aren't born with empathy, and many parents are really concerned that their children develop empathy. And I find that especially today that parents are very sensitive to this. And one of the ways, it's a very subtle quality to teach your children. And to me, this idea of stepping into another person's existence is the way to really teach them by role modeling, by sharing. So when they would ask me an age, I would actually try to think of something that I experienced in my life that might be similar to what one of them is experiencing in their lives now. And that way they can relate, and I can relate as well to what's happening in each other's lives. And this quality of empathy can be developed between us, and especially for the children, for their developing little minds. Another great thing at bedtime is we used to do colors and do massages. So I would give each of the kids a little back massage and a little leg massage, and I would ask them like what colors they were feeling in their body. And it's funny because some kids are really visually perceptive that way, and they'll actually come up with, if I touch their head, what color do you see? And they'll say a color. If I touch their heart, what color do you see? And they'll say a color. And it was just a way of being connected and having fun and playing and just being in a real loving, connected group. And I found that was a really great way for us to connect at bedtime. So I hope some of these ideas will give you some ideas to share with your children in creating ways to connect as a family and together. And I like to do it at bedtime, but whatever works into your family schedule is fine. It's perfectly fine. And you can do things that connect and bond you as a family. So have a great day. Happy parenting.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Positive Parenting PEP Talks podcast. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Debbie Godfrey, owner and founder of PositiveParenting.com. I hope you'll go and check out my website and follow me on Instagram and let me know about what you thought about today's episode. Did you learn something new? Were you able to do something different with your children? Did you have a success story? Those are my favorite to share. Let me know. Contact me. I'd love to hear from you. And also, what future topics would you be interested in hearing about on the Positive Parenting Pep Talks podcast? Thank you so much for being here and for all of your support. Take care and happy parenting.